now we are kind of get through the most dense part, and we can just maybe try to. Shall we read the original text or just talk about it?
Yeah.
You already read it in beforehand, or
Yeah, I've read it. It's been a bit, but I've read up. I think I read all of the up to the end of Socrates' second speech.
Uh,
So yeah.
Yeah, you read to the end of the second speech.
Yeah. So I didn't understand all of it. I think I read.
But today we begin from just after that.
Oh, okay.
I think the best ways we read it just then. And so I will read the Phaedrus part and the
yeah, I can read
Socrates. Okay, can you hear us well?
Yes.
Okay, so I will remove the computer a little bit in between of us. So like it's
250, 534, right?
257c, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
right.
so it's the beginning of rhetoric. Enjoying your prayer, Socrates. If this is really best for us, may it come to pass. As to your speech, I admired it from the moment you began. You managed it much better than your first time. I am afraid that Lysias' effort to match it is bound to fall flat. If, of course, he even dares to try to offer a speech of his own. In fact, my marvelous friend, a politician I know, was only recently taking Lysias to task for just that reason. Although his invective, he kept calling him a speechwriter. So perhaps his pride will keep him from writing this speech for us.
What a foolish thing to say, young man. How wrong you are about your friend. You can't be intimidated so easily. Or perhaps you thought the man who was taking him to task meant what he said as a reproach?
And here I have so here's I think the central part of the long passage is the word speech writing or a reproach or with negative connotation or not. So that has the central thesis in this passage. It certainly seems to, Socrates. In any case, you are surely aware yourself that the most powerful and renowned politicians are ashamed to compose speeches or leave any writings behind. They are afraid that in later times they may come to be known as sophists.
Phaedrus, you don't understand the expression pleasant bend. It originally referred to the long bend of the Nile. And besides the bend, besides the bend, you also don't understand that the most ambitious politicians love speech writing and long for their writings to survive. In fact, when they write one of their speeches, they are so pleased when people praise it that they add at the beginning a list of its admirers everywhere.
What do you mean? I don't understand.
Don't you know that the first thing politicians put in their writings is the name of their admirers?
How so?
Resolved, the author often begins, by the council or by the people or by both, and so said, meaning himself, the writer, with great solemnity and self-importance. Only then does he go on with what he has to say, showing off his wisdom to his admirers, often composing a very long document. Do you think there's any difference between that and a written speech?
No, I don't.
Well then, if it remains on the books, he's delighted and leaves the stage a poet. But if it's struck down, if he fails as a speechwriter and isn't considered worthy of having his work written down, he goes into deep mourning and his friends along with him.
He certainly does.
Clearly, then, they don't feel contempt for speechwriting. On the contrary, they are in awe of it.
So I think here we can have a short break. Any questions?
So Phaedrus is saying, okay, politicians don't like, right, they're very negative about speechwriters, and Socrates is saying, but admire, I didn't fully follow. I don't understand the pleasant at the bend thing. What is this expression?
I think this is
language that means the opposite.
Yeah,
Well, pleasant is really a long.
Exactly.
I guess actually he's just saying politicians want, right, the writings to strong. I don't understand the stuff about the admirers though. Seems very It seems very particular to a cultural period in Greece, maybe, where they put stuff in the beginning. I don't have the reference.
Here, I think this is a very good question. I will try to answer it, but I might be wrong because it's rather historical stuff. I think the first fact is Athens, as Socrates' time, was mostly a democratic society. Yeah, and in democratic society, so public speech is really important.
Yeah.
So that's where how you get support, get selected, or something like that. And then, so rhetoric in general is really at stake for Plato and for the people in there, and they want to understand the nature of this, and especially the influence on society as a whole.
Yeah.
And for Plato, especially after Athens was defeated by Spartans, so then I think, as I understand it, he thinks the like integrity or the more the the sophistry or rhetoric is one of the reasons that Athens get defeated or lost their virtues and then ended such in a bad situation. So I think that's basically the why he keep returning to this subject.
Yeah.
And then according to it, then public speech also is a kind of speech or kind of like writings, right? Or generally words. So then behind it is how should be a reliable kind of information source, and those stuff also behind that. And then just the first question should be, so what is the general attitude towards a very good public speaker?
Yeah.
So then in fact, Phaedrus, I don't know where he got this idea. He represented Plato's own idea, which says sophists and rhetoricians or orators as negative. And then, in fact, here, I think Plato just used his as like the process of the dialogue. So, but I don't know why he has it. But in any way, then Socrates in contrast say, okay, how can you say that? Everybody admires a good orator, in fact, right? And like a politician after they retire, usually they write a book biography or something like so, always like that, and so on and so forth. So Socrates gives some example to counter his like Phaedrus' like claim. I don't know how far I answered your question.
Yeah, I think so. I was confused about like the result. That's helpful. The resolved stuff, like the resolved by the council. What does the note say? This is the standard form of the decision. Oh, okay.
Yeah. I always like even today, like in China especially. So as important sort of someone and resolved as a Congress or something. So it's a huge book that they write, and in fact they are written by a speechwriter, usually not by the politicians themselves. Yeah. So still today, it's a very interesting phenomenon. It's not out of date. Okay, how about this? You have any question?
Frozen, maybe.
Oh. Can you understand us? Oh, I think we have internet problem, maybe. That. I think he might really lost. Looks nice, but. Hi, okay.
Maybe he's having trouble.
Oh, it's just gone.
Hello.
Ah, you are there again.
Yeah,
Great.
I actually can hear you guys, but when I speak, you couldn't hear me, so I rejoined.
You can't hear us.
I can. I could hear you guys, but when I spoke, you guys couldn't hear me. That's why I rejoined the meeting.
Great. But now I think it works very well.
Okay. Nice.
And so how about what just discussed? You have any question further?
No, I can really relate to this speechwriter phenomenon in China. You mentioned about politics. They ask others to help them to write the speech.
But in the end, it's in their name, and also they will say, okay, it's a resolution of the Congress, of the party, of the government, or something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Like oftentimes there's no negative votes or something as well.
So basically, Socrates reject Phaedrus' claim in give some phenomenon everybody acknowledge, right? Acknowledges. So it's there's very strong rejection. Further questions about this passage? Then we can go on to this shameful thing, and then as to finish the first. Yeah. Right. So
There's this too. What of an orator or a king who acquires enough power to match Lycurgus, Solon, or Darius as a lawgiver and acquires immortal fame as a speechwriter in his city? Doesn't he think that he is equal to the gods while he is still alive? And don't those who live in later times believe just the same about him when they behold his writings?
very much so.
Do you really believe that any of these people, whoever he is and however much he hates Lysias, would reproach him for being a writer?
It certainly isn't likely in view of what you said, for he would probably be reproaching his own ambition as well.
This, then, is quite clear. Writing speeches is not in itself a shameful thing.
So it's the first block of the argument, right? What we just discussed. Yeah. Further question? No? So then we could go on. How could it be?
It's not speaking or writing well that's shameful. What's really shameful is to engage in either of them shamefully or badly.
That is clear.
So what distinguishes good from bad writing? Do we need to ask this question of Lysias or anyone else who ever did or will write anything, whether a public or private document, poetic verse or plain prose?
I think we can stop here for a short while, and then I think this short passage is very important. The first is he kind of like say public speech is like neutral, right? And so it depends on like he says
the act of writing or speaking is itself. It's not inherently bad. It's badly or well.
And this kind of arguments is today also very strong, like in technical area, right? So AI is not inherently bad or worse.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, then it's depends on how you.
Yeah, sure.
and also social media and so on and so forth. They basically is this kind of like argument. But then what does that mean to engage in either of them shamefully or badly, right? Then that's the question then. What does that mean?
Yeah. Well, assume he carries on to ask this. Do we need to, and also what does it mean? Do we need to ask this question of Lysias or anyone else who ever did or will write anything? We need to.
Oh, you mean the old sentence a little bit earlier?
Yeah, no, he says, so it distinguishes, it's the last one.
Oh,
So it distinguishes good from bad writing. Do we
okay.
need to ask this question of Lysias? There's
Mm,
like two questions, right? So he's going to
mm,
answer both of these, right? So first of all, what makes good and bad writing? And then secondly,
mm,
is this even, at least if I understand the second question correctly, do we even need to ask this question of those texts?
mm,
Which
mm.
I don't quite understand why he's, well, I guess he's saying like a private document. Like, I guess presumably it's more relevant for a private document.
Yes, yes. I think here then, um, here then, about the scope of the discussion. Say, we we discuss rhetoric, right? And so how to like give scope to it, even or define it. So Plato gives us a very broad scope, like
Yeah.
not only public speeches,
Yeah, but also everything,
but
right?
also every kind of like private document or even private uh, like conversation as we have. It's
Yeah.
also kind of rhetoric now.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's like anything, any kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like any kind of rhetoric, right? Yeah.
Yes. And also silent rhetoric,
Yeah.
which means, and also the second one is genre, right? Poetry and prose. And so
Yeah.
come back to Lysias. He is a famous orator in any case, but this role, right? Phaedrus has
Yeah.
is not like not in MP3, right? It's
Yeah.
it's not. It's a paper. The
Yeah.
nature. So is that this is example which they are aiming at inside of the scope? I think just.
Yeah.
Question? Okay, from your side, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can.
Ah, great.
So I guess the reason they focus on writing is because that's the main content from the speech, right?
Uh, can you repeat the question or did you understand? Okay.
Oh, there's something.
So like we will previously talk about the speech, but then we comes to the writing because the writing is the main content from the speech, and that's why we focus on that, right?
Yeah.
I even think it's not only writing, Hukun.
Yeah.
It's everything in words, right?
Yeah.
Later on, like
right.
also like our conversation is also a part of rhetoric or right? Maybe or so he makes it really broad, like what those look these objects or this I think objects or subjects, those subjects language can deliver maybe.
Yeah.
So very broad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I mean, obviously it shifts as well, right? Because if Phaedrus brings up like the speechwriter stuff, so it's shifting from, right, like the giving a speech to the content, right? It shifts from giving a speech to the content of the speech to that.
Yeah. So if no further question, we go on, right? And it also become more interesting. You ask if we need to, why else should one live, I say, if not for pleasure of this sort? Certainly not for those you cannot feel unless you are first in pain, like most of the pleasures of the body, and which for this reason we call the pleasures of slaves. Yeah. Yes, a very interesting passage.
Yeah, maybe we should.
Yeah.
What else should one live? I say no.
How should we understand this passage?
So okay, so Socrates asks, do we need to ask this question of so saying, okay, what makes good writing? So obviously writing itself is not good or bad, right? It's just whether you do it well or well or poorly, right? That's the thing that's going to make the writing good or bad.
Mm.
And then I understand that, right? So what's the thing that's good from bad writing? That makes sense. The thing is, do we need to ask the question of Lysias or anyone ever? So he's saying, like, do we even, which I don't quite understand why he's asking this, I have to admit. He's saying, like, do we even need to ask this question of Lysias? I understand maybe for a private document, right? You'd think like a private document, well, who cares if it's good or bad, right? But a public document maybe looks a little more obvious why you'd care, because it really influences people. So Lysias or Phaedrus' answer confuses me a lot. It says, if we need to, so why else would we live if not for the pleasures? So I guess he's saying, well, so, right, this is the reason to live, is to engage with good, right, with these higher pleasures, right, not the pleasures of the flesh, right, the pleasures of the slave. We presumably want to engage with pleasures of the mind. And so if we want to engage with pleasures of the mind, presumably we need to know what's good and bad writing, so then it's a very relevant question for everything. I think. Is that Phaedrus' answer?
So can you have an answer for what Strauss just said?
I don't like fully got what Rose was talking about. I think this has something to do with the internet as well.
Okay. So then I will try to explain it a little bit. Yeah. First, then, do we in fact, Phaedrus did not go to other parts we just discussed about the Socrates passage, right? He in fact he only get into do we need to, so, or in other words, or whether the discussion about the content of or what the language can deliver at stake for us. In fact, he just want to say this is one of the most important questions. So we should discuss rhetoric because it's important. Why he think it's important? Then that's he give very, very quick passage. In fact, I think we also already discussed it. For Phaedrus, he just likes the entertainment part of speeches or of discourses. So for him, then we can maybe go even a little bit further. For him, a good life is a pleasant life. Pleasure is the most important stuff. And then he go further to this point. This point I was also share, or as even today share. So why we are discussing here? Because this kind of pleasure is a little bit different. So if we want to, like, if we want to have a very good lunch, right? Then we need to give some pain for it. So for example, we need to work, right? Or to earn money, or even in the best way, we should go for some physical labor and for a long time, and until we get very hungry and we suffered a lot from the pain of the hunger, and then we go into the restaurant and order something, and then we enjoy the lunch, right? So he kind of like think a very well flat food or every stuff like this, you need to pay for something, and which is painful for them. And then as a counterpart balance, maybe even less, so you get this little pressure. But but if you just read some books, right, have some philosophical conversation or listening to music, you don't need to have pain, in fact, or very less pain, but the reward is huge. I think that's what he means.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying about food. Isn't the way to go back to the food example though? Isn't the food example better? Right? He's saying, well, to understand the pleasure of food, you have to, like, very obviously. I think it's actually a good example. First, you have to be pain. First you have to be hungry. Right. It's like first you have to be hungry, then you can enjoy the pleasure of food. First, you, like, for sex, first you have to be lustful, and like be denied that, and then so it's always there has to be a pain first. First, you're right. Reading a book is just pure, right? There's no pain, and so. I see. And then he's saying that because of that, that's a higher form of pleasure.
So this kind of thing, that's in fact that's the principle of his life. So of course he want to understand it, right? So it's at stake. I need to know. We need to talk about that.
Like the pleasure of books is the highest pleasure. So of course it's relevant no matter what. That makes sense.
And
Yeah.
maybe one sentence more to what you said. I think that Plato discussed that a lot. So he also give definition to pleasure.
Yeah.
And he like in Timaeus and also in Philebus, he discussed that. And he's in some passage he says he defined pleasure as going back to the original place. So first, then you will get away from the place, like especially when suddenly, and then you go back to the original place slowly, and then you will have pleasure or something like that. So then you can see this picture. His the definition of pleasure is like just hunger. Hunger is a good example. So now maybe we are not hungry, and then we just in some neutral state.
Yeah.
If we didn't have 2 days, right? Yeah, and so on and so forth. So original place.
Needs to go painful, and then
and also how quickly you get back to that.
Yeah.
And so then he defines pleasure in that way. Yeah. And anyway, that's a little bit diverging.
Yeah.
Original place, like, is this kind of a pleasure example we were talking about? That, for example, we are not hungry, then we, get hunger, and then we get food, we go back to this not hungry state.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. And so smoking, sex, every stuff is in this nature, and every kind of pleasure to Plato. But we kind of like have a exception. It's reading.
Or like pleasures of the mind, right? Like any kind of intellectual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or anticipation, no pleasure.
Yeah, because pleasures of the flesh need craving, and craving is pain, essentially.
Yeah.
I get, and this reflects a little bit the stuff Socrates was talking about in the love stuff, right? It's like the highest, right? The idea of the highest good being the soul who is the philosopher, the soul who engages in the pleasures of the mind.
I think this is a very good point. Basically, you are saying the eros itself is the pleasures of slaves here in the terms here, right? But if you reorient it, you orient your eros to or Sophia or to philosophy, maybe just
then it's the highest.
Then you don't need to like counterbalance this consequence. So then you were only in that state.
Yeah, or it's the highest. It's the highest, right? It's almost Socrates agrees with him, right? He said, or maybe Socrates agrees with him at least. In the second speech, he appears to, right? Because he's saying, well, the best soul is the soul that is this soul free of these like body, like these kind of bodily, who's mastered what the gods see, and that's very like it's all these intellectual pleasures.
And I think also this is definitely you are right, and at the same time I think maybe one comment to that. So you are saying already, in fact, the later passages. So it's not so the pleasure of philosophy as like a subset of or a part of the discourses, right? So that's a really good one. But here, maybe we still need to look at like whether a pleasure for any kind of like discourses or rhetoric are good, right? That's basically the question. Question, okay.
I think there was the discussion about high quality pleasure, so that doesn't involve state change. I get this impression in your discussion. Like I'm not sure if I understand that, because, for example, just by having this meeting or just read for philosophy books, I think the state of our mind is also changed from kind of neutral state to be impressed, to be pleasured by the text or the conversation. We change our previous state to a more, pleasure state. And yeah, that's how I feel.
Yes, but maybe we can say before that we need to read this text, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, also, I think it's important. I don't think it's just state change might be a little confusing of a way to put it. I think the important point is the distinguishment between pleasures of the flesh, which require first having a craving, right? So first, and craving is a kind of pain, right? So I think hunger is a really good example, or like eating is a really good example, right? Because first, to have the pleasures of the food, you have to be hungry. This is a very obvious example, right? Because hunger is quite literally painful, right? So first, to enjoy food, you have to be hungry, and then only once you're hungry can you receive that pleasure of food. And I think he's contrasting that particular kind of first you need pain, then you need pleasure with book, right? The pleasures of book or words or rhetoric, where you don't, or art in general, maybe, where you don't need to be you don't need to be in pain first, right? Like I don't need to be like, oh, I really need to read right now, and that's like painful to me, and then I need to go read. I can just read the book, and then it's this kind of like elevated state.
So
But
Ross, you
this,
think it's
go
more
ahead.
important about the current state where you feel whether it's very negative or you are, yeah, and also the motivation which drives you from changing from one state to another state.
I think Hokun, you make a very important distinction. Like I just want to say then, in fact, reading also could be a craving, right? Or painful
Yeah,
long process. Otherwise, we will have thousands of people here speaking with talking with us.
Yeah. There's certainly like a pain. It's like a specific kind of. Yeah. I just think Phaedrus is saying, well, you don't need to be in, right? The pleasures of the flesh, the pleasures of the body. You need to be in a certain kind of pain before you can even enjoy the pleasure. Whereas the book, you don't need to be.
And it kind of like book. So then the second Hokun say it comes. It depends on your motivation.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure, of course. Yeah.
So some people or anticipation. Some people, if they just, I think maybe Lysias we could say some kind of like pop music at that time, or then those people just enjoyed it, right? Really, like Lysias, he just find something pleasant and read. He does not go through the process Plato is suggesting, like to nourish its wings and try to fly high. And so it's a long, painful journey, maybe. But anyway, then for then this interpretation is also problematic because for a philosopher, then it's not painful, right? It's the most beautiful because his motivation.
Yeah. That's
Any further question? If so we go further as in your passage.
But it seems, as a weird thing, it seems we clearly have the time. Besides, I think that the cicadas who are singing and carrying on conversations with one another in the heat of the day above our heads are also watching us. And if they saw the two of us avoiding conversations at midday like most people, diverted by their song and, sluggish of mind, nodding off, they would have every right to laugh at us, convinced that a pair of slaves had come to their resting place to sleep like sheep, gathering around the spring in the afternoon. But if they see us in conversation, steadfastly navigating around them as if they were the sirens, they'll be very pleased and immediately give us the gift from the gods. They are able to give us the gift from the gods they are able to give to mortals.
What is this gift? I don't think I have heard of it.
Everyone who loves the muses should have heard of this. The story goes that the cicadas used to be human beings who lived before the birth of the muses. When the muses were born and song was created for the first time, some of the people of that time were so overwhelmed with the pleasures of singing that they forgot to eat or drink. So they died without even realizing it. It is from them that the race of cicadas came into being, and as a gift from the muses, they have no need of nourishment once they are born. Instead, they immediately burst into song without food or drink until it is time for them to die. After they die, they go to the muses and tell each one of them which mortals have honored her. Pteropsorku I don't know. They report those who have honored her by their devotion to the dance and thus make them dear to her. To Arato, they report those who honored her by dedicating themselves to the affairs of love, and so too with other muses, according to the activity that honored each. And to Calliope, the oldest among them, and Uranie, the next after her, who provide over the heavens and all discourse, human and divine, and sing with the sweetest voices, they report those who honor their special kind of music by leading a philosophical life. There are many reasons, then, why we should talk and not waste our afternoon sleep.
By all means, let's talk. I think here sort of good stuff. Questions?
So in 259b, but if they see us in conversation, blah blah blah. I think here conversation is not like a normal conversation. It's more about conversation to like philosophical conversations, right? To figure out the truth and so on.
Yeah, I think they're philosophical.
I think this is a very beautiful and interesting myth.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's also supposed to be slightly funny, right? It's like this kind of, maybe at least to me, it seemed a little funny. It's like this kind of, he's like, well, let's not be lazy. The cicadas will laugh at us. So let's engage in conversation. We'll avoid their song, like the Song of Siren. At least in the first passage or something.
Yeah.
A little teasing maybe about it.
Yeah. And he just said like, we have a camera.
Us. Like, well, they're watching us, so we should. Yeah.
Yes, the big brother is watching us, and the big brother loves philosophy, so we should do philosophy.
Exactly. It's like, well, the skaters are watching us, so let's not be lazy.
Yes, they will report us. The second one is to the gods, right?
Yeah, exactly.
This feels like religion. You only do those good things, then you can go. When you after death, you go to a good place in heaven and so on.
Yeah.
But he definitely is like illustrates the strong motivation Hokun just mentioned, right? The cicadas, they just love singing, and they sing all the time, and forgot to eat and died. So I think they don't. They don't. How to say that? Perceive this kind of like work as something painful, right? Yeah. But rather they enjoy it. Yeah. Yes, and the big brother, the gods also praise them. So, yeah. And even before the muses, yeah. And yeah, and here a little bit background. So the Greek word musique, which translates into most of Western language as music, right? Means in fact what like those areas which the muses preside. So it's not only music in today's sense, but also poetry, dance, and all discourses, maybe philosophy altogether.
Yeah.
So here you can see those muses are multiple. It's not only one, and some are responsible for this, some are for that, and basically, yeah, that's a little bit of background.
Should we continue?
Yeah.
Okay, by all means. Well, then, we ought to examine the topic proposed just now. When is a speech well written, delivered, and when is it not?
Plainly.
Won't someone who is to speak well and nobly have to have in mind the truth about the subject he's going to discuss?
What I have actually heard about this, Socrates, my friend, is that it is not necessary for the intending orator to learn what is really just, but only what will seem just to the crowd, who will act as judges. Nor again what is really good or noble, but only what will seem so. For that is what persuasion proceeds from, not truth.
Anything that wise men say, Phaedrus, is not lightly to be cast aside. We must consider whether it might be right. And what you just said in particular must not be dismissed.
You're right.
Let's look at it this way then.
Okay. Here, I think it's already important passage.
Yeah, right. So this is going to be the central discussion, right? It's going to be
Yeah.
obviously, right. There's like a very Platonic thing where it's like, so should speeches aim at truth or should they just aim at persuasion? This seems to be
or both.
Yeah, I mean, presumably it seems to be both, but or let's say like to the exclusion of the other, right? So should, or more specifically, should the orator know? Actually, this is more important, right? Should the orator know what is true, or should the orator just try to say what he thinks the crowd will think is true? Or just.
Okay. Question?
No, I think I really like a 260 paragraph. It still reflects the reality nowadays.
Nowadays, always.
Yeah. It's always just reflecting what the crowd should.
And I think this kind of like rhetoric here can be understood as advertisement or propaganda. So everybody just, and even management. So like you want to convince your people.
Not even management. I think especially management.
Especially management. Okay. So it's just sad. That's human life. And basically here maybe I want to say something. Plato's idea is really great. And later on, John Stuart Mill, right? He writes that book. Basically was on liberty. On liberty, yeah. And basically about this subject also. So shed a little bit different light. We hear bearing that in mind. He basically said, truth is hard to know, and so we cannot be so hard on this rhetoric. So everybody just say something. Let's say maybe you think he's wrong, but maybe he has some merit, right, or something like that. So then kind of like a very strong counter argument to Plato. In modern sense. Yeah.
Okay. Suppose I was trying to convince you that you should fight your enemies on horseback, and neither one of us knew what a horse is, but I happen to know this much about you, that Phaedrus believes a horse is the tame animal with the longest ears.
But that would be ridiculous, Socrates.
Not quite yet, actually, but if I were seriously trying to convince you, having composed a speech in praise of the donkey, in which I called it a horse and claimed that having such an animal is of immense value, both at home and in military service, that it is good for fighting and for carrying your baggage, and that it is useful for much else besides.
Well, that would be totally ridiculous.
Well, which is better, to be ridiculous in a friend or clever in an enemy?
The former.
And so when a rhetorician who does not know good from bad addresses a city which knows no better and attempts to sway it, not praising a miserable donkey as if it were a horse, but bad as if it were good, and having studied what the people believe, persuades them to do something bad instead of good. With that as its seed, what sort of crop do you think rhetoric can harvest?
A crop of really poor quality.
But could it be, my friend, that we have mocked the art of speaking more rudely than it deserves? For it might perhaps reply, what bizarre nonsense. Look, I'm not forcing anyone to learn how to make speeches without knowing the truth. On the contrary, my advice, for what it is worth, is to take me up only after mastering the truth. But I do make this boast. Even someone who knows the truth couldn't produce a conviction on the basis of a systematic art without me.
So I think here we can stop even basically at the poor quality. That passage is already a small section.
Yeah, even from the donkey stuff.
Yeah. So basically here he gives an example, a vivid example, or more understandable example. Like in Chinese we have a very similar one. Say point to the deer but quit and pause. So but that's another context. But in any way, so it gives an example of the sometimes the absence of the truth, right? In some orations, and which have strong effect and consequences.
Right. So he's trying to, with the donkey example, it's just supposed to be, okay, obviously it's better to be a little contrary, but to actually like say something that's true than to say something that's false, that then like flatters whatever the prior perception, whatever the person listening already thinks, right?
Yeah. So the donkey is stupid, right? And if in the battle he cannot really run fast and also does not have the merit at all, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time they are similar.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but it's similar.
Yeah, I would say even feel like maybe in the nowadays in the young generation you put this two in front of the that's really no.
Yeah.
So they are similar and they are at stake and they have different merit, right? And one is true and one is false. So
Yeah, it's clearly truth.
Yeah.
But then there's an interesting reply, right? So we say, okay, obviously you want someone, right, a rhetorician who knows already the truth. But then there's an interesting reply by the art. It's like, oh, Socrates is like, haven't we dismissed speech making too quickly? Because speech making can say, well, of course. Or the art of speech making is like, well, of course, I want people to know the truth. But my point is only, even if you do know the truth, you can't convince anyone without me, right? So it's like, whether you have the truth or not, I'm just merely a method of convincing somebody.
Yes. He is a little bit cautious, right?
Yeah.
We want like to how to say it, to kill him too quickly, but we will examine it more closely, and if they have some merit, maybe even then after our inquiry we'll give them the merit. So we don't only do it in a prejudiced way, but we will like inquire it.
Yeah.
Any question, Hokun, here?
No.
Okay.
I'll come back shortly.
And then just comment thereafter some inquiries you just read. So maybe the best way is first truth, and then you have the skills to persuade other people.
Right, yeah.
And then how should this persuasion look like, and how should the truth look like? Maybe we can say the truth must based on a systematic account or systematic art, right?
Yeah.
Yes, kind of like as you mentioned shortly. Yeah. Well, is that a fair reply?
Yes, it is, if that is, the arguments now advancing upon rhetoric testify that it is an art. For it seems to me, as if I hear certain arguments approaching and protesting, that is a lie, and that rhetoric is not an art, but an artless practice. As the Spartan said, there is no genuine art of speaking without a grasp of truth, and there never will be.
We need to hear these arguments, Socrates, produce them, and examine them. What is their point? How do they make it?
Come to us then, noble creatures, convince Phaedrus, him of the beautiful offspring, that unless he pursues a philosophy properly, he will never be able to make a proper speech on any subject either, and let Phaedrus be the one to answer.
Let them put their questions. So I think here shortly and stop. Then he already put his point, right? So
yeah,
the answer is philosophy could be kind of like a noble rhetorician or rhetoric or noble sophistry, kind of like that. So if philosophy is the answer, but not rhetoric, right? So the pleasure should come from.
Wait, right here, to trace the dialectic quickly, as I understand it, it's like, right, okay, should speech writing be, right? Should we prioritize truth or just flattery? Okay, clearly truth, but then speech writing says, well, I'm not saying you should deprioritize truth. I'm just saying you need me in order to convince someone of truth, right? Truth is like kind of, I think it's saying like truth is kind of beside the point, right? That's the point. That's the speech writing point. It's like truth's kind of beside the point for me. I'm just a method of convincing people. Of course, you should have the truth. That's morally better, but that's kind of irrelevant to me. And then it seems Socrates says, okay, is that a fair response? It looks plausible, but there's these people who say, actually, that's not a fair response. Rhetoric, that makes rhetoric pretend like it's an art, right? So it's just this kind of method on its own, when in fact, you need truth, right? It's an artless practice. There's no way of genuine speaking without a grasp of truth. So the truth is actually, in fact, necessary. So this reply doesn't work. And now we're going to get the argument, I guess, for why that is, right? That's going to be, and then Phaedrus is saying, well, this is a very important argument. Please tell them to me, right? Tell me what these Spartan arguments are. Or the Spartan said earlier. I don't know.
Exactly. So the Spartans also for Chinese very interesting. So they are not democratic, you know. For them, rhetoric does not have significance.
Right.
Yes, in Athens.
Yeah.
And so maybe see how they argue.
Yeah. They want there to be.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Let them put their question. Okay. Well then, isn't the rhetorical art, taken as a whole, a way of directing the soul by means of speech, not only in the law courts and on other public occasions, but also in private? Isn't it one and the same art, whether its subject is great or small, and no more to be held in esteem if it is followed correctly, when its questions are serious than when they are trivial? What have you heard about all this?
I think here we can have a stop because it's kind of like the second definition, or second kind of like, if maybe you just use the definition of rhetoric.
Yeah.
Right, and here has a little bit different emphasis as the first one. The first one is in the first one is here, I think 58D. Yes, kind of write anything, whether public or private document, poetic verse or plain prose.
Yeah.
So kind of like here, first general sentence, and here the second one is then a way of directing the soul. So emphasize the effect of this kind of like stuff on the human soul. Yeah, and the second is the occasions, usually law court or the assembly, public or in private, and then sometimes about great subject like whether we need a war towards other country. Sometimes just maybe in the kitchen, people just argue with each other about sugar or not, and so on and so forth. So
yeah, right. Yeah, it's like an important.
Yeah. Questions? Yeah.
No.
So then we go further. Well, certainly not what you have. Artful speaking and writing is found mainly in the law courts, also perhaps in the assembly. That's all I've heard.
Well, have you only heard of the rhetorical treatises of Nestor and Odysseus, those they wrote in their spare time in Troy? Have you also heard of the works of Phaedrus?
No, by Zeus.
Okay.
I haven't even heard of Nestor's, unless by Nestor you mean Gorgias, and by Odysseus, Thrasymachus or Theodorus.
Perhaps, but let's leave these people aside. Answer this question yourself. What do adversaries do in the law courts? Don't they speak on opposite sides? What else can we call what they do?
That's it, exactly.
About what is just and what is unjust?
Yes.
And won't whoever does this artfully make the same thing appear to the same people sometimes just and sometimes, when he prefers, unjust?
Of course.
And when he addresses the assembly, he'll make the city approve a policy at one time as a good one and reject it, the very same policy, as just the opposite at another.
Right.
Now, don't we know that the aletic Palamedes is such an artful speaker that his listeners will perceive the same thing to be both sinful and dissimilar, both one and many, both at rest and also in motion?
Most certainly.
We can therefore find the practice of speaking on opposite sides, not only of the law courts and the assembly. Rather, it seems that one single art, if of course it is an art in the first place, governs all speaking. By means of it, one can make out as similar anything that can be so assimilated to everything to which it can be made similar, and expose anyone who tries to hide the fact that this is what he is doing.
What do you mean by that?
I think it will become clear if you look at it this way. Where is deception most likely to occur, regarding things that differ much or things that differ little from one another?
Regarding those that differ little.
At any rate, you are most likely to escape detection as you shift from one thing to its opposite to small steps rather than in large ones.
Without a doubt.
Therefore, if you are to deceive someone else and to avoid deception yourself, you must know precisely the respect in which things are similar and dissimilar to one another.
Yes, you must.
And is it really possible for someone who doesn't know what each thing truly is to detect a similarity, whether large or small, between something who doesn't know and anything else?
That's impossible.
Clearly, therefore, the state of being deceived and holding beliefs contrary to what is the case comes upon people by reason of certain similarities.
That's how it happens.
Could someone then, who doesn't know what each thing is, ever have the art to lead others little by little through similarities away from what is the case on each occasion to its opposite? Or could he escape this being done to himself?
Never.
Therefore, my friend, the artist speaker who doesn't know the truth and chases opinions instead is likely to be a ridiculous thing, not an art at all.
So it seems. I think maybe
yeah.
here we have a short possible. Although still, I think in a big argument, but
yeah,
becomes too long.
Okay.
For line 261e, a bit above, Socrates said, now don't we know, blah, 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 both similar and dissimilar, both one and many, both at rest and also in motion. I think what Socrates believes is that for the topic he wants to discuss, those things are kind of defined and deterministic. That's why there is no like two states to happen simultaneously. So by truth, there will be only one and only one like definition or interpretation or.
Hukun, here's a little bit difficult. I will explain you something. Basically, from this 61, Plato just introduced to the reader different sort of sophistry or different sort of rhetoric. And then one's kind of like private or like managers, you say, like this artist is just he's very good at public speech and to lead a team maybe. And then the second class is Gorgias and Theophimachus and Theodorus. Those are really like teacher of rhetoric. So rhetoric. So they are sophists. They teach how to speak publicly and also take charge of it.
Yeah.
And the third part, this is very interesting. In fact, it's referred to Zenon's paradoxes. So that's very important in the history. Basically, he can something say, gold can never catch up a turtle or something like that. This like bizarre claim, and then he just argued in a like very strict way. So, and then which is really counter like intuition. So basically here, and so this background, and especially those paradoxes about maybe he can say the word is one or many, and is like is a turtle at rest or emotion and so on. He can argue for either way. That's basically paradoxes.
Yeah, I think it's a very clever argument because he starts out with being like, well, look, right, because what he's going to ultimately argue for is the idea, right? He's going to argue for the Spartan idea that truth is necessary for speech writing. And he starts out with a seeming contradiction, I feel like, which is like, oh, well, you can use rhetoric to convince people of one thing or its total opposite. So that seems that would seem to be like, okay, well, then truth is not necessary. You don't need to be truth because you can use it to convince anything. But then I feel like, slowly through this argument convince you, no, actually, you do need to know truth, because, right, to convince someone of something that's opposite of truth, you actually do need to know what is true, right? You need to know what's similar and dissimilar. It's clever. He's like, okay, to convince someone that two things are similar, i.e., something that's false. If it's false, you need to know, in fact, that they're dissimilar to like make your rhetoric convincing, right? Because you can't make these big jumps. And if two things are similar, and to convince them of that, you need to know that true to make these right. So you need, no matter whether you're saying something just or unjust, you need to know the truth. It seems like is at least the upshot of sorry.
Exactly.
So if I understood that correctly, so that means for people who use this kind of strategy or rhetoric strategy, then they basically at one time choose either rest, but maybe next time choose emotion. So
Exactly.
Example, but they don't tell the audience that actually it could be, if possible, could be both. At the same time, could be rest, could be emotion. Because like when I read this paragraph, I think about quantum physics. Because like there could, for certain time being, there could be two state, both possible. But when only if we measure that we know which state it could be. But here maybe the speech maker, they know that there could be two states, but they will pick the state which is best suitable for their speech, and maybe pick.
Exactly.
Okay.
But I think it's more important as well. It's not. I don't think he's saying there could be two states. But I think he's saying like they need to know what is actually the case, and then depending on what they're trying to convince you of, right, that's going to change the.
Then they pick the side which is more suitable for their speech, for their purpose, right?
Yeah, for their purpose, right? But in order to make their speech convincing, they actually need to know what is actually the case, right? So like Zeno's paradox may be a good example, right? Like things obviously do move, but Zeno's purpose in that speech, or say the paradox, is to convince you that things maybe don't actually move, right? Let's just say that, and then, right, so to do that, he has to construct this very clever argument, right? And that's his act of rhetoric. But to do that, he has to be aware of the truth that things, in fact, do move, right? So he needs to then deal with that truth in some way, right? Yeah. So I think it's not that there's two states and they or two things could be the case, and the rhetorician chooses the one that's more suitable to their state. I think it's the rhetorician has their purpose, but in order to make their speech suitable to their purpose, they need to be aware of the facts, right? They need to be aware of the truth, because otherwise their speech will just come out being silly, right? If they're not aware of how dissimilar or similar things are, if they're not aware that things are in motion or things are not in motion, they're going to end up saying ridiculous stuff, and their speech is not going to be convincing, right? They need to have this, they need to be aware of what is the case, so they can potentially convince the audience that what is the case isn't the case, or what is the case is the case, maybe, right?
Yeah.
But regardless, they need to know what's true. Because, right, it's going to change the rhetorical strategy, right? If you're trying to get someone that's something that is obviously the case isn't the case, you need to have a very different rhetorical strategy, something else. But if you do know that what is the case, and you're trying to convince them it's not the case, then it's like your rhetoric's going to be totally flat. It's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Any further question? I think yes, made here.
Okay, so it seems. Is it after?
Seems. Yeah.
So I should read after. So we shall look. Oh yeah, I think so. It seems. So we shall look for instances of what we called the artful and the artless in the speech of Lysias you heard here, and in our own speeches.
Yeah.
So shall we? Yeah. So shall we look for instances of what we call the artful and the artless in the speech of Lysias you carried here and in our own speeches?
Yes, really, we stopped at a very good place, in fact. So that's really the end of theoretical discussion of this part. And then we get to something more understandable It's just about the the speech
The
itself.
speeches, yeah.
So
I think I read the so.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's the best.
That's the best thing to do because as it is, we are talking quite abstractly without enough examples.
In fact, by some chance, the two speeches do, as it seems, contain an example of the way in which someone who knows the truth can toy with his audience and mislead them. For my part, Phaedrus, I hold the local gods responsible for this. Also, perhaps the messengers of the muses who are singing over our heads may have inspired me with this gift. Certainly, I don't possess the art of speaking.
Fine. But explain what you mean.
Come then, read me the beginning of Lysias' speech.
You understand my situation. I've told you how good it would be for us, in my opinion, if we could work this out. In any case, I don't think I should lose the chance to get what I am asking for, merely because I don't happen to be in love with you. A man in love will wish he had not done you any favors.
Stop. Our task is to say how he fails and writes artlessly, right?
Yes,
Now, isn't this much absolutely clear? We are in accord with one another about some of the things we discourse about, and in discord about others.
I think I understood what you are saying, but please, can you make a little bit clearer?
When someone utters the word iron or silver, don't we all think of the same thing?
Certainly.
But what happens when we say just or good? Doesn't each one of us go in a different direction? Don't we differ with one another and even with ourselves?
We certainly do.
Therefore, we agree about the former and disagree about the latter.
Right.
Now, in which of these two cases are we more easily deceived? And when does rhetoric have greater power?
Certainly when we wander in different directions.
It follows that whoever wants to acquire the art of rhetoric must first make a systematic division and grasp a particular character of each of these three kinds of things, both the kind where most people wander in different directions and the kind where they do not.
What a splendid thing, Socrates. He will have understood if he grabs that.
Second, I think he must not be mistaken about his subject. He must have a sharp eye for the class to which whatever he is about to discuss belongs.
Of course, I think here we have a short break.
Yeah.
It's already long. And I think that I will explain a little bit about this systematic division and grasp the particular character of each of these two kinds of things. What does that mean? So I will just give the example of this book. So about the definition of eros, then Plato said, okay, the first stuff is eros is a kind of madness.
Yeah.
And then so we have like a genus and a species, but still what does that a kind of? Then you need to divide, or you divide, and then he divided into first secular madness and divine madness. What is secular madness? Just like schizophrenia or something like that.
Yeah, and divide, yeah.
Yeah, and divine madness. So okay, then we got to the point that Eros is a divine madness. But then we find out also other divine madnesses, which
Right.
like oracle, like the second one is I think some rituals to hire somebody, and the third is like poetry, right, and art, and the fourth is like Eros. So after those division, and then we get to that, and find the proper the kind of like where it is located, and then you can also see this structure beneath it, and so the system maybe. So then you understand the subject much better, and according to Plato, it's also in the knowledge. Yes, for the one necessary condition of knowledge. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that was also the question I want to ask about this classification of many, because first I thought, I always mention madness, but you corrected to divine madness. And what was the first type of madness? Secular?
Yeah, so I think that word divine secular, right?
Yeah, I think it was secular divine.
Yeah.
Secular.
It's
What
just
kind?
yeah.
Can you give some examples again on the first type, the secular madness?
It's just like today we have some hospital for those crazy people, right? So they have
okay.
psychological problem or psychic problem.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. It's
Yeah.
okay. It's like a physically or medically madness.
Yeah. It's just plenty of madness.
Okay,
This is,
Yeah.
I see.
yeah. And you can see in other books, especially Statesman and Sophist, Plato just demonstrated this division and discussed a lot of details about it. And later on, I think Aristotle especially is very good at it. So it, according mean at least from a Chinese perspective, it marks the difference between China and Europe, like to the philosophies and the civilizations. Here's just this small part, how to systematically divide stuff, then make the Europe culture or Greek culture so unique and so successful. Yeah.
Yeah.
And exactly. So that's the first hint from my side. And any questions about this, because it's kind of like also we will start slowly get into the art of this part, I think. No? So then we go ahead.
Well, now, what shall we say about love? Does it belong to the class where people differ or where they don't?
Oh, surely the classes where they differ. Otherwise, do you think you could have spoken of it as you did a few minutes ago? First saying that it is harmful both in lover and beloved, and then immediately afterwards that is the greatest good. Okay, here I think also important, like you should define your term first, right? So otherwise it just goes everywhere.
Very well put. But now let me tell this. I can't remember it all because I was completely possessed by the gods. Did I define love at the beginning of my speech?
Oh, absolutely, by Zeus. You most certainly did.
Alas, how much more artful of speeches the nymphs, daughter of Achilles, and Pan, son of Hermes, are according to what you say, than Lysias, son of Syphilis. Or am I wrong? Did Lysias too, at the start of his love speech, compel us to assume that love is the single thing that he himself wanted it to be? Did he then complete his speech by arranging everything in relation to that? Will you read it opening once again?
If you like, but what you are looking for is not there.
Read it so that I can hear it in his own words.
You understand my situation. I've told you how good it would be for us, in my opinion, if we could work this out. In any case, I don't think I should lose the chance to get what I am asking for, merely because I don't happen to be in love with you. I mean, in love where wish he had not done you any favors once his desires dies down.
He certainly seems a long way from doing what we wanted. He doesn't even start from the beginning, but from the end, making his speech swim upstream on its back. His first words are what a lover would say to his boy as he was concluding his speech. Am I wrong, Phaedrus, dear heart?
Here I want to say something. So you can see in this passage we just read already a discourse about love, but without definition, right? So then later on, just like most of the internet chorus nowadays, nobody defines the term. So just then a lot of stuff's already happening, right? So basically, that's I think what for this is the problem. Did I define love at the beginning of my speech? So, but Socrates just says this is important, and in Lysias' speech, that's not the case. And in both his speeches, he defined love. So in the first and the second we just discussed about it shortly as a kind of divine madness. But in the first, he kind of like say, if the desire overcomes the reason or something like that. Also gave a definition. That's for sure. But he also say how good that is. That's another question. And here, I think he goes to another problem of this. This we will see. But so far to this to 64A, any questions?
Yeah, I'm thinking like practically speaking, like in many contexts, for example, even this context, how can one define love? It's I find it's really hard in reality. Because this type of things is like a just, like a good. Different people have different opinions.
You have an
and
answer?
especially in
One more time.
formal conversation.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I mean, I think it's difficult. I don't know. I mean, that's the difficulty of rhetoric, right? Like, it's supposed to be how do you define these? I don't know.
In fact, Hogan, this is you ask such a fundamental question. I basically answer that philosophy is about, right?
Yeah, it's like how do you
Yeah, so what is X? This question is basically the central philosophical question.
Yeah.
And
Further.
yeah, and for Plato and for them is, I think, everything is in this nature almost. He said something you don't dispute about, like a table, right? And somewhere he said that stuff. So those stuff you don't need to dispute that about. And at that time, I think not only what is just, what is unjust, but also what is motion, say. And so what is force? At Plato's time, in fact, these theoretical philosophers at that time really disagreed with each other about this natural phenomenon. And then they need to define motion and what's the other way of motion, and stay the same place. What's the English word for it?
What?
Motion, and the other side is
Rest.
Yeah. So what is rest and what is motion? So at that time, it's all kind of like philosophical question. Everybody would say, how can we know what is motion and what is rest? Yeah. But and exactly as what is justice.
Yeah.
But nowadays we would say Newton answers the question of what is motion and what is rest very well, right?
Yeah.
So that's not a philosophical question anymore. So those questions could be solved, but Newton called himself also a philosopher.
Right.
So yeah, so it's usually those questions are what philosophy is about. The question of what is X, and which are at the moment controversial. Yeah, and after Newton, then it's not philosophical question anymore because it's answered.
Yeah.
Yes. So basically, who can you point out the fundamental structure of human like sciences or human knowledges and opinions maybe. So basically, in the natural science, we have a textbook, right? When we studied, and then it just began with definitions of basic concepts, and those concepts are not controversial anymore. Otherwise, it will not appear in the high school in math or something like that. And then one conception after another, and then it begins maybe some other stuff, and then you can see the discipline or the subject as a whole. But now, if we come back to the humanities, and then without definition or concept, you cannot discuss.
Yeah.
But everybody will almost in dispute will not agree with the definition of others.
Yeah.
So that's where philosophers step in, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
even though for
Mm.
some concept, as we have discussed earlier, for some concepts we don't have a consensus on the definition. We still can or should give the definition first and then start our reasoning and so on, so that we have a good speech. In that sense,
that's
right?
yes, that's a necessary
And this, I guess, is the
condition.
point what Plato wants to make, I guess. Right.
But yes, you are definitely right. So he would say it's a definite without, or I will put it this way, without a definition, a discussion of adversary parties is meaningless. So you cannot achieve anything, right? And then for Plato, yes, that's the message. Yeah, you go ahead.
Yeah, especially because I think most of the time, especially like love, they belong to the second category. Those things like just and good. People stand in different places, have different views. And even for iron and silver, people may also have different views. That's why it's very important. You first pick the side, pick the definition, and then you start your reasoning, so that you couldn't at the beginning you stand at one side and then you use this similarity, whatever, and go close to the opposite side to cheat people.
Yes. So then that's agreed, and I think you're right. And the second one is for Plato, they have definitions, right? Where we know that in Phaedrus he said the gods, the 12 gods are floating flying in the heaven, so they can see the forms, like the just and the beauty and justice and the beauty and so on. So this capitalized, right? So then I also discussed with you, Hokan, if you remember, those are entities that exist for Plato, those forms. And secondly, he also think if we look at them, like the gods look at them, or in our prayer life, when we were in the heaven, we looked at them, watched them, and got something from it, then we can know them. And maybe then there's the source of knowledge. And then we have some sentences or some words about those forms, then those are knowledges, basically, or truth in Plato's words. So if then you looked at the forms already beforehand, and then you remember them well, and you put it into your words authentically and in a systematic way, then you know the subject. That's then you can maybe go to the mass and talk to them. That's we will discuss later. But I just want to say, for Plato, there is objective truth even in those controversial subjects. Yeah.
Oh, what you saying? Well, Socrates, that was the end.
Socrates. I think, yeah. Well, Socrates, that was the end for which he gives a speech.
And what about the rest? Don't the parts of the speech appear to have been thrown together at random? Is it evident the second point he had to be made second for some compelling reason? Is that so for any other points? At least, of course, I know nothing about such matters, thought the author said just whatever came to mind next, though not without a certain noble willfulness. But do you know any principle of speech composition compelling him to place these things one after another in its order?
It's very generous of you to think that I can understand his reasons so clearly.
But surely you admit at least this much. Every speech must be put together like a living creature with a body of its own. It must be neither without head nor without legs. It must have a middle and extremities that are fitting, both to one another and to the whole work.
How could it be otherwise?
But look at your friend's speech. Is it like that, or is it otherwise? Actually, you'll find that it's just like the epigram people say is inscribed on the tomb of Midas the Phaedrus.
What epigram is that, and what is the matter with it?
It goes like this: A maid of bronze am I, on Midas' tomb I lie. As long as water flows and trees grow tall, shielding the grave where many come to cry, that Midas rests here, I say to one and all. I'm sure you notice that it makes no difference at all which verses comes first and which last.
You are making fun of our speech, Socrates.
Well then, if that upsets you, let's leave the speech aside, even though I think it has plenty of very useful examples, provided one tries to emulate as little as possible, and turn to the others. I think it is important for students to pay attention to one of their features.
And I think here we have a short break. Hoquin, you know,
Yeah.
Hoquin, he studied, I think, studied computer science and also worked as now as machine learning in that area, right, Hoquin?
Yes.
And I think here you can explain us much better. Like I learned a little bit the language C, right? In the just how to program in the in the first study, and I definitely think you cannot just throw in the computer the sentences in the order you like, right? You need a structure. So all those programming structure is a kind of like structured, right?
Yeah.
Way. Basically, here I think Socrates, after talked about the division of concepts, and he come to the structure of a speech.
Yeah.
It's just like a program. So yeah, a small program would have a structure, and also then like if we write an essay, right? Introduction, abstract, right? Introduction and main body.
Yeah, main body, argument one. Yeah. These sentences.
Yeah, and then conclusion, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like traditional programming, yes, you need have to write it in certain structure according to the syntax requirement. But actually, I think it's kind of different nowadays because you can use a natural language to program. As you know, LLM is very popular and very powerful nowadays. Basically, you can actually just use a very nature and a very informal or even unstructured words to do what you want.
So
I don't know like how to interpret that, but I do get the example you cite for traditional programming that the structure is needed.
But here I may ask then, if you write those kind of like natural languages in a random or kind of like sometimes not so strict structure or order, then the machine in fact will translate them into a structural programming language in the background, right? In the end, it will be translated into those structure. Is that right? Or
Yeah, that should be the case. Otherwise, it doesn't work out because
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Then I think then my point holds. Then it's just like a appearance that you sometimes do not need to think that much unstructured because the machine will do that work for you, right? Basically.
Yeah. The output from the machine will structure, will reformat what you input.
Yeah. So there's then further questions about this passage? No, then What do you mean?
They were in a way opposite to one another. One claimed that one should give one's favor to the lover, the other to the non-lover.
Mostly manfully too.
I thought you were going to say madly, which would have been the truth. That is also just what I was looking for. We did say, didn't we, that love is a kind of madness.
Yes.
There are two kinds of madness, one produced by human illness, the other by a divinely inspired release from normally accepted behavior.
Certainly.
We also distinguished four parts within the divine kind and connected them to four gods. Having attributed the inspiration of the prophet to Apollo, of the mystic to Dionysus, of the poet to the Muses, and the fourth part of madness to Aphrodite and to love, we said that madness of love is the best. We used a certain sort of image to describe love's passion. Perhaps it had a measure of truth in it, though it may also have led us astray. And having whipped up a not altogether implausible speech, we sang playfully, but also appropriately and respectfully. A story like him to my master and yours, Phaedrus, to love, who watches over beautiful boys.
And I listened to it with the greatest pleasure.
Let's take up this point about it right away. How was the speech able to produce from censure to praise? Proceed.
What exactly do you mean by that?
Well, everything else in it really does appear to me to have been spoken in play, but part of it was given with fortune's guidance, and there are in it two kinds of things the nature of which it would be quite wonderful to grasp by means of a systematic art.
Which things?
The first consists in seeing together things that are scattered about everywhere and collecting them into one kind, so that by defining each thing we can make clear the subject of any instruction we wish to give. Just so with our discussion of love. Whether its definition was or was not correct, at least it allowed the speech to proceed clearly and consistently with itself.
I think dot break here. And I think we even come to the end of today's reading. And then about this passage, any question? And about what we read today as a whole?
I think it's kind of off topic, but also a bit related. So, like at that time, I guess so people living Greek, they really like have this kind of a philosophy conversation quite a lot. And then I thought about today, if it's not the case, but then I guess it might be not what my first impression has, because like nowadays, like nature science is divided from philosophy, which I think if in the view of the Plato's, it should be part of the philosophy, right? For those people who study science or do research, they are actually, in general, are trying to figure out the truth about the world. In that sense, like still quite some portion of people in our society still like doing philosophy. Yeah, I mean, in that sense, it's not that bad. In our times.
Yeah, I think you are saying philosophy is needed in our time because, like you can see, the sciences as a whole may be kind of like also very doing things in a similar way like philosophy, or should do the same way, right? And also it's relevant to say in our public life in politics say today even those subjects. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Because previously I was a bit, from my first impression, a bit feel a bit sad, because compared to old Greek times, modern life, modern world doesn't care about philosophy that much. But then,
okay, I see.
When I think about science, actually, people are trying to figure out the truth, are trying to go close to it.
I know what you mean. Now I understand better. So, like the descendants, how to say that?
Yeah, descendants.
Descendants of Plato is not the academic or philosophers today, but the whole universities altogether. I think that's a bit generally true. Yeah. So like Plato at his time, he's maybe talking about the syntax of languages, as you said. So now it's not philosophers, mostly not only philosophers work, right, but also like the in linguistics and for you in the computer science and so on and so forth, and about the motion and the rest, say physics, and so on and so forth. So basically, the sciences today and or scientists altogether in the whole world could say they are descendants of the Greek tradition, although changed a lot, but the spirit still there. And those spirit basically you cannot find anywhere in the world, anywhere else in the world. So it's very, very Greek, like a pure interest on those theories.
Yeah.
Theories, right? Theories, and try to figure out the truth of the world and the human society. This is really something Greek. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But actually, I think still modern times the science are no less singer just in the motivation of finding truth. Most of the time, I think it's also kind of from the motivation to, I don't know, improve productivity or get technology so that society can get completed.
You're right. Yeah. Those two sometimes. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, please.
This stuff like the utilitarian perspective of sciences and the theoretical science perspective, sometimes they go hand in hand, but not always.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to be next week, but I'll be the week after for a meeting.
Cool. Yeah. So if no question, and then we close out our meeting for today, right?
Yeah.
And thanks for coming.
Thank you for the next time in this morning. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
So have a good holiday. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.